Been asked about what's the best voltage to store your batteries for your flashlights. Uh, you have to be careful about how charged up you keep them. If you keep them completely charged, it'll sort of break your battery down with time. So there's a few things to go by when you want to put these aside and store them, like if you're going to put them in a box, safety box or something away for a few months, or whether it's short term or long term, on how much charge you should leave in these things. With most of them, they have slow discharge to them, so it's gradually your battery is going to break down with time, and it's going to have lower and lower charge till it gets to a point to where some batteries will try to block the cutoff around 2.5 volts, and once it gets to that point, anything below that, it starts breaking down the durability and life of your battery. Most companies will tell you a basic voltage range. It's sort of 40 to 60% of the capacity of the battery. It just depends on the battery, what the amp hour rating is with them. But for the most part, sort of 3.6 to 3.7 volts is a safe range to keep them in, is what most of the manufacturers recommend. But to tell you the truth, if you want to store them, ideally it's closer to around 3.3 volts that will cause the least amount of damage to your batteries. So any of these 18650 cells, if you're gonna keep a really good eye on the batteries, check them periodically and not go over more than a month or so. 3.3 is about ideal to keep them charged at. Most manufacturers will tell you that 3.6 to the 3.7, because they know you're going to put them somewhere and forget about them, and they're going to discharge, and it gives them a much longer range to discharge before you find that battery again, and it still will probably be usable for you. But 3.3 is about the range that Samsung has found is ideal to store their batteries if you're going to keep them periodically charged and not let them discharge down to 2.5 volts. Really, it makes a difference too where you store them. So you want to keep these batteries in a area that's kind of cool and dry, not in direct sun. The sun can cause some damage on them, cause swelling and deterioration to them, but they want you to keep them around 20 Celsius, somewhere around 68, 70 degrees on them is the ideal temperature for them to just sit at. So anything that has a button cell type on them that is a protected cell, they have circuitry in this top portion of the batteries, and that circuitry has a drain on it too, so it adds a little bit to, say, something like these unprotected cells. They're going to drain at a slower rate than a protected cell will do in these. These have like protection and battery gauge circuits in here that sort of have a parasitic drain on them, so these little components will pull a little bit of electricity to mine the cell and keep it safe, whereas the unprotected ones don't have that, and they'll last a little bit longer when you put them away for storage. But most of these, once you run them in the flashlight for a while, if you spend a day with the flashlight, you may get it in that range you need to store it. So like this cell, when I just use one of these cheap, simple multimeters, you can check the cell, and that 3.79 on it, that's about as max as you want to leave it for storage on it. A cell like this that's been recently charged, you're looking at getting closer to the max charge rate. So most cells, 4.2 is about what you want to charge them up to. But after they've set for a little while at that 4.2, they'll drop down to 4.1 or even a little bit less than that. And that's where they're going to stay for a couple of months till they slowly work their way down in voltage. But If you ever let it get below 2.5, it really starts breaking down the battery and it'll start damaging it. And sometimes you can't even recharge them and recover from there. So ideally, if you're the kind of person that's going to check them a lot, around 3.3 is the ideal voltage to get the most life out of your battery. Whereas most manufacturers will tell the average Joe that's going to put them aside for 6 months before they pull it out again. You usually want to stay around that 3.6, 3.7 voltage range before you throw them in a jar and then end up pulling them out 6 months later, and you'll still be good with it. But most people, 3.6, 3.7 is easy, but if you're going to use it quite a bit, then 3.3 is where you can drop it down to. Keeping it at that 3.5 to 3.6, 3.7 range, it just makes it faster for you to charge the battery to use it. So if you only have that one good battery left, it's going to take you much shorter time to bring it up to charge than the 3.3. But you might want to consider having a few batteries around, and the extra ones keep it lower voltage, and the ones that you're going to use more often keep it a little bit higher voltage. So that's sort of the safe range to work with. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.